Good morning. What's good? I finally got some good sleep last night. I took some CBD edibles that also have some melatonin in them, and the weather cooled off, and I was parked by the ocean. It was kind of an epic last 12 hours. I got to see a just absolutely beautiful sunset, and I'm going to do a whole nother video on that. Anyways, this video, should I have snitched? F the corporations. So here's what happened. I was at Safeway. There is a Safeway that I frequent because it's near where I like to park at night. It's just very centrally and conveniently located. There's a teriyaki place right there that I go to often. When you live in a vehicle, it's nice to have like stable and consistent places. It provides me, especially because I'm a little neurodivergent and I like routine and rhythm and things. I go to this Safeway a lot, but I do acknowledge that it's a Safeway, which is a massive corporation. When you follow up the parent company, I think maybe like Kroger, and then everything leads back to BlackRock and Vanguard and State Street and the private equity firms that are ultimately owned by the banking families. Don't want to get too far into that right now, but I was at the Safeway, and they have the stupid self-checkout islands, and it's set up where it's like they have 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. And like one person kind of in front of all of them watching it, but it's an underpaid person who isn't paying the most attention. Excuse me. And so I was behind a gentleman who had 4 items. I distinctly remember him having 4 items. And I wasn't fully paying attention at this point. I was looking around, and then when I went back to look to see how far he was in his transaction, because, I was next in line, I see that he had only paid for 2 of the items, or he only scanned 2 of the items, and then he was paying. And I was like, okay, he's maybe doing like multiple cards or something like that, right? Maybe an EBT card and a debit card. I don't know. But that had told me, okay, it's going to be another few minutes before it's my turn. Whatever. And he finishes the one transaction, and I see him very subtly like do a quick look around with his 2 hands, reaches down on both sides of the self-checkout stand, so the side where you put your scanned items and the side where you put your unscanned items, grabs his items, boop, and then looks at his receipt, and I could literally see him do a micro, like little, telling himself, no, don't grab your receipt, because that gives him plausible deniability. So he left his receipt, and then he just left. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure he just stole those items. And it wasn't like 2 personal items that he had put down. It was like some freaking ice cream and milk or something like that, right? So it's not like he was setting his personal items there. Anyways, so he totally fucking stole. And I was a little offended because ultimately, this is the line of, inquiry my brain goes into. Should I have snitched? Because in the long run, shrinkage, as it's called in not shrinkage. Little Freudian slip there. Okay, so shrink, as it's called in retail, loss due to theft, due to damaged goods, due to poor inventory practices. So shrink lowers profit, which means companies have to raise prices. So theft ultimately causes higher prices. And you might want to argue and say, oh, it's negligible or marginal, but like you cannot say it's negligible to people who are literally not even getting by at the current moment, because it is not negligible. It is very palpable. Every freaking 50 cents is palpable. My hummus, I have a particular brand of hummus that I like. It used to be $3.99 just standard. Now it's $5.99. And I've seen other brands go as high as $7.99 for a fucking thing of hummus. It used to, sorry, I'm getting a little worked up, but like, so here's my dilemma. Because fuck the corporations that are best friends with the politicians that have created this mess. Fuck them. I don't have any love for Safeway. I have love for the certain individual people that make the experience positive and comfortable for me. But fuck the corporation. But at the same time, 50 cents across many items across a year adds up. And when you're struggling, I'm getting a little worked up. That's fine though. That's good. That's human. That's normal. And so, like, when we now have, I don't want to get too connected into the riots and the protesting and the looting that we're seeing in LA that's going to spread, that we're going to see all across the country, because there are a lot of struggling people that can be manipulated psychologically to go and conduct chaos. There's also the conservative side. The argument that I'm kind of trying to make is that, like, I'm suffering because of other people's lack of morality. Now, to be fair, this is a little bit of the pot calling the kettle black, because I often don't pay for my bags. You know, I don't know if it's national, but in Washington State, you have to pay 8 cents or whatever for a bag. And it's like a tax, but it's stupid. So I'm like, no, fuck that. I don't pay it most of the time. Sometimes I do, but most of the time I don't. So I am also, but like, now that doesn't go to a company's bottom line, does it? Right? Like, I don't know how that works. So maybe I am also part of the problem. I'm a human. I'm a hypocrite. So ultimately, I did not snitch on this guy, but I thought to myself, I could just, like, take the receipt and go give it to them and be like, hey, if you look at the camera at this transaction and this time, you'll see somebody stealing, and maybe you should, like, keep a lookout for them. You know, because, again, fuck the giant corporations, but there are good people that work there. And I have so much compassion and empathy and love for them, truly love, because, like, I go here particularly to get coffee in the morning. It's, you know, like I said, close to where I park, and I've developed a really good relationship with the various baristas there. I swear to you, like, there are so many random people throughout mostly Washington State, but other states as well, that I've just built the most fun, unique relationships with, that if I were to ever, let's say, get famous, like, I have this delusion of grandeur of being on the Joe Rogan podcast. Not myself. It's like, I'm going to invite Christian and Steven, my two bros, and we're going to do a Liberty Revival panel. That's what I'm manifesting. But if that were to happen, so many random people would be like, hey, I know that guy. He was cool as shit. On the flip side, there will be a few people who will be like, that guy's a fucking douche. And I earned that. I've earned both of those. I acknowledge that. I think it will be a far greater number of people that, you know, have this love for me. But yeah, there will be people who rightfully, you know, I just, you know, I comment a lot that in my 20s I was a douche, and I acknowledge that, and I'm working to grow past that. I've made tremendous progress, but I still have some work to do. But anyways, let me just try and wrap up this video. I see both sides of this argument, where when you're looting from massive corporations that work in conjunction with the government to fuck the average person, yeah, fuck them. You know, it's almost like a Robin Hood situation, almost. But then at the same time, the people who are just trying to be moral and live within the rules of the system, whether or not the system itself is actually moral, is, you know, not part of the equation. Because a lot of people don't know the system is immoral. That's part of our, you know, sort of mission. Most people don't know how immoral the system is, because most people don't know fully how it functions and just how deep the corruption goes. Because they hide a lot of it, they propagandize, they misdirect. But then also there's the cognitive dissonance element, where, you know, when you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and your worldview is mostly formed, and then world-shattering information presents itself, yeah, that can be tough to wrestle with. I acknowledge that. And so, like, both sides have some legitimate grievances and some legitimate merits to their points, but we're not, unfortunately, having the right conversation around why inflation has, gone so rampant, why wages are so low, and why so many industries are disappearing, and we haven't even approached we're not nearly even halfway to AI's potential. We're a few percent into bringing AI's potential to manifest, and that's a scary thought to think about. What is AI going to do? I'm going to end the video here. I have so many more thoughts on like how we can utilize AI to live in harmony with the planet, because that's just the beautiful goal. That's the mission. Please like, comment, share, subscribe. Check the link in the description below to get your No Division shirt or your PsyOps special shirt. It's a spicy one, but let me tell you, it gets attention. So if you just want some attention, wear that shirt out in public. Much love, y'all.